Processes and tools dominate today's Agile discussions, but we are devoted to the individuals and interactions that make it work. From the beginner to the veteran practitioner, we have something for you. Welcome to Agile for Humans.
Welcome back to Agile for Humans. I'm your host, Ryan Ripley. We are still at The Ohio State University at the Path to Agility Conference. Talking to me now, Doc Norton. Doc, how you doing?
Is
it okay to call you Doc?
Yeah, absolutely.
All right.
Yeah. Most people know me as Doc.
All right. So, of course, Doc Norton, one of the stewards of our Agile community, one of the big thinkers, the great minds. You're here speaking at the conference.
Mm-hmm.
What are you talking about this week? What are you bringing to the attendees?
So this week, the talk is called "Building Blocks of a Knowledge Work Culture," and this talk it's kind of densely packed. It's one that I'm continuing to iterate on, but. We talk about Cynefin, which is a complexity framework, right? Kind of a decision-making framework. And as you look at the complexity of work, what styles of management, what decision-making protocols, what organizational structures make sense, and basically showing that a lot of what we know about management and leadership is formulated in complexity domains that don't apply to the work that we do. Right. Which actually is leading to many of the interesting behaviors we see in organizations. And then we get into really what are elements of an environment that you need to have for really good knowledge work. So we talk about autonomy, connection, excellence, and diversity.
Great. So it really sounds like a play on Taylor versus Deming, some of those types of discussions with some models and frameworks mixed in. A very, very powerful stuff. When you work with executives and management on this, what is the key stumbling block that you run into? Where do they struggle? What do they find painful? I
think what's difficult really is just this mindset shift, right? That even as we're walked through this idea of complexity and different decision making, all of that makes sense. We can agree with all of that. But then when it actually comes to here's how your behaviors need to change, that's difficult, right?
Sure.
And you look at larger organizations especially, but any organization, and many of us we've got a lot of years of experience being very successful in a hierarchy-oriented environment.
Right.
And to say, okay, yes, I agree that actually the hierarchy is detrimental to creativity and knowledge work, but I have no models for how to actually make this work. So it's all theory.
Well, and the problem is we still have to feed our kids.
Yes.
So you show up and your baby's ugly, your ideas are wrong, and now here's what we need to do. And of course, it's never that brutal, but I'm sure that's the feeling.
It is the
that
feeling
goes through them.
Yes, and oftentimes, there's some fear there, right? Just around when you're talking to folks that are in management roles. The natural question is, what happens to my job?
Right.
And that job does significantly change. In some cases, those jobs end up morphing into something else, right? And as the organization matures, certain roles become obviated, including certain centralized functions. Really high-functioning organizations that are designed appropriately for high creativity, high knowledge work actually don't have centralized accounting, centralized HR. A lot of the centralization that's advantageous for Tayloristic type stuff is actually detrimental for creative and knowledge work.
So, and I think you're referring back to the systems of work that provide outside influence to teams doing knowledge work and how those collide and cause friction. Definitely powerful stuff. Again, it seems like the organizations and perhaps your experiences either validate or negate this idea, but when you move away from that central system of control,
right,
which is what they are today, and you go towards a product-centric structure, it seems to free up a lot of those issues.
It does. Yeah, it definitely does. And we're actually, CTO2 is my consulting organization, and our target client is actually kind of later stage startup companies that are through the point of trying to figure out, does the market actually exist and do we have market product fit, but aren't yet at the point where now we're 2,000 people and we accidentally built the structure that looks just like the structure our grandfathers had, right? And helping them through that kind of transition period. And my experience has been, it's better if we can to get involved then, rather than you've been around for 50 years and you've got strong hierarchy and strong structure, and now let's try and dismantle that. Try
to break the habit before it's solid.
Right, exactly.
Right. No, it's an important space. I think it's one of those we've talked with Joanna Rothman and many others on the podcast recently about how the move to a product-centric view, it's inevitable.
Right.
These companies will eat the lunch of those that don't go down this path. And so this is coming. It's real. What's a key step that, aside from hiring your consulting firm, right, bringing in the experts, helping with all that, which is an important step. That's not a joke. That's very critical, because it's those outside that can see the things that we can't. So it's always a critical step. But what's something that, for the listeners out there, that they know that this is coming? What are the things they can look at now to try to at least get ready for when they need to make this shift?
So I think, one of the things that we see in a lot of organizations is there's a lack of actual connection. And what I mean by that is, you think of Conway's Law, right? The systems that we produce are a reflection of the social structures of the organization, right? And that's entirely true. And a lot of times when we go into organizations, you see a lot of stratification as well as a lot of siloing. The work is structured to match. It flows to match that structure. And just working on breaking down some of those silos and some of those barriers, just working on coming together more often and working together is a really good first step towards getting where you need to be. And that can be done without changing any reporting structures, anything else, right?
We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, more with Doc Norton. Agile Dev East is the premier industry event covering the latest techniques and topics in the Agile universe. Learn both foundational knowledge and new methodologies to develop skills, supercharge knowledge, and re-energize your career growth. This year's event will take place November 13th through the 18th in Orlando, Florida. As an added bonus, the event is co-located with Better Software and DevOps East conferences. Your one registration automatically gives you access to all three programs. This means you can choose from over 100 learning and networking opportunities to build a customized week of learning that fits you and your organization's specific needs. Explore the program at adceast.techwell.com. Agile for Humans listeners use code AFH16 to receive $200 off their conference registration fees. Register by the September 16th super early bird deadline for combined savings of up to $600 off at adceast.techwell.com. It's an interesting idea that just starting to work across the organization and across silos can start to show the value of breaking some of those down. It's a hard shift, though, because I think many companies are structured around the idea of, this is repeatable work. This is factory work. This is, we have removed head from hand. We're just going to tell you how to do it, give you a process, and go and flourish. But in reality, these companies today are expecting innovation. They're expecting brilliance. They're expecting art, creativity, all these things that mean hand and head have to be together again.
Right.
And we're not prepared for this, especially from a management perspective. And it's just, Kneffin has come along and has helped us out. Is there anything else out there from a model or a mindset stance that you think people should be looking at, that they should really investigate and invest in?
From a model perspective,
of course, Agile, but
right, yeah, and actually, there's plenty of stuff in design thinking, that I'd really like to see some of that work move its way into the Agile space, and just into organizations in general, right? It doesn't have to be under the Agile moniker by any means. I like the fact that systems thinking, lean, those types of things have really been embraced by the Agile community as well. I think as we're slowly adding to our understanding of organizations and how things work, right? I don't know if I have any that actually like stand out in my mind as like, yes, you should definitely look at this.
Well, I think just acknowledging that this is a newer space, these are very difficult topics, right? How do we take all of these different systems of work? How do we take all of these different individuals with their own motivations, put them on teams, put them within these systems, and then evaluate that and figure out the best way?
Right.
And that's always a difficult discussion, and I think it's one that, while some people wish you could take a model and drop it on an org, this is a number of years to get to where, it reminds me of, and you'll have to tell me if this is related or not. I think it's Diana Larson's Agile fluency model, where she starts with, let's just deliver code, and let's deliver value, let's optimize value, and then optimize organizations. I think I got that right. And it's just one of those, which step are you ready to take?
Right.
And so getting people along that pipe or down that path seems to be the most critical challenge of this space.
Yep. Yeah, and Diana's with that model. Diana's done a good job of really abstracting away any specifics and basically saying like, look, this is a pattern that I've seen over and over and over again, but it's a very loosely defined pattern, right?
Right.
We're going to focus on delivering code, but there's no prescription for the specific mechanics of that.
Right. So she created the flow. What I like about it though is that it does inherently give you almost investment options. So as a company, there are some out there that would say, well, you want to get all the way to an optimized Agile organization. Well, there are 100-year-old companies that if they would get to step 2, would be a pretty humane place to work.
Right.
And so what I like is that she does stop it and say, well, maybe step 2 is right here, and this is the kind of investment that you have to make. Step 3 could be beneficial, but 2 gets you where you want to be. And
yes.
I think that kind of pragmatism mixed into Kneffen, some of these models, Dan Pink, and then your extension of those, I think of that work where you actually say, well, wait a minute, the individual is important, but we're a team-based kind of mindset here, so let's bring in some of these other practices. I think all that comes together almost serendipitously and helps us do some really, truly innovative things. So
yeah,
it's a really neat space that you're in, and really appreciate you sharing that with us.
Oh, yeah, my pleasure.
So as far as anything else that you have going on, is there anything you want to get in front of the listeners, anything that they should know about, or how can they continue the conversation with you?
So I personally am available. I'm Doc on Dev. Right,
Doc on Dev.
And it really is like all the things whack Doc on Dev. Whether it's Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, whatever, right? And then my organization is CTO2, and we are CTO2.com, it's I blog on both docondev.com as well as wearecto2.com. Topics are slightly different, but they're along the same lines. Doc on Dev is a little more focused on the actual development stuff, and CTO2 is a little more focused on the organizational.
So in the dev space, that's interesting. What are organizations doing in conjunction with this mindset shift on the technical side that you're seeing that's playing together in that space?
Well, it's an interesting opportunity to actually reintroduce things we've known for a long time, but in a slightly different context, right?
Old but unknown is as good as new, right?
Yes,
good.
Exactly. So it's interesting as we're talking about some of these ideas, and really a lot of the stuff that we're talking about in terms of ways teams need to work. We've already known this,
sure,
right? But as we start introducing the idea of breaking down these silos, right? That's one of the things we talked about, is a lack of connection in a lot of organizations, and getting people to start to work across those boundaries.
Right.
We start reintroducing the idea of, even like a Three Amigos practice, or stuff that previously was just not possible in that organization now becomes possible, right? From an actual tech practices standpoint, I haven't seen a lot of things that are really uniquely new that are happening. Even the idea of domain modeling in that, right, is kind of, we're seeing that come back up again now as companies are having discussions around, all right, so if we should reorg to get rid of these boundaries, there have to be boundaries somewhere. What should that look like? So.
No, it's great stuff. It's always interesting to see the tech and the theory and the organizational stuff come back together.
Yep.
Because at the heart of what we're doing, it is a development play.
Yeah.
And trying to get back to those two melding back together, it's great to see that you're doing that. And I think that helps organizations feel more comfortable with some of the mindset shifts that we're doing. It's like, wait a minute, this is all touchy-feely stuff, but we're seeing real productivity over here, and we're seeing better outcomes, not output, better outcomes.
Better outcomes.
And we're getting some real business value delivered. And so the marriage of those two seems to be incredibly effective. So, Doc, I appreciate sharing this with us.
Absolutely.
It's been great getting to talk to you. I know you're very busy as one of the featured speakers, so we'll let you get back to your conference activities. And but really appreciative that you cut some time out to join us.
No, my pleasure. Thank you.
All right. Take care, Doc.
Take care.
I really enjoy these shorter conversations, especially with people like Doc. You get to sit down, have a one-on-one, and really talk about the things that are important to you. And it's why I really enjoy Agile Dev East. It's a great conference where you get to sit down, talk to people one-on-one. I think the last time I was out, I went to Agile Dev West, had a great time talking to people like Bob Galen over lunch. Just you ask your questions, you form friendships, you get this one-on-one interaction. And it's a great experience. You get access to the people who have literally written the book about Agile, or the many books about Agile. And it's just a chance to really plug into the community and meet people. I really enjoy it. I will be out in November 13th through the 18th in Orlando, Florida for Agile Dev East. I'm presenting a half-day workshop on what to do after the 2-day Scrum course. And I'm also presenting the business of Agile, better, faster, cheaper. You know, this talk went over very well at Agile 2016. I think a lot of people are going to enjoy it out at Agile Dev East as well. So I hope to see as many of you out there as possible November 13th through the 18th in Orlando, Florida for Agile Dev East. Use the code AFH16 to save $200 off your entry. And I hope to see all of you out there, and I'm looking forward to our one-on-one conversations and our opportunities to connect and to plug into our community.
Thanks for listening to Agile for Humans. Let's keep the conversation going. Drop us a question on Twitter @AgileForHumans or visit agileforhumans.com.